Missions Pulse. Know God's heart, join His mission.
The mission is not canceled. The thing that initially, just like with anybody, was an immediate kind of punch in the chest when this happened, because we were in the middle of really what you could call a revival happening in the Kulmang village here in Thailand, an area that had never heard of Jesus. There was not one church there whatsoever. We had gone on Christmas and went out and handed out Christmas presents. And then asked if we could pray for the sick. And out of the 66, I believe, Christmas presents we handed out, 20 said, we could pray for them. And we even said, we didn't use the word pray. We said, can we speak a blessing over you in the name of our God, Jesus? Yes. And about actually exactly 20 said, yes, you can do that. And then when we begin to do that, of course, we just jumped right in there, brother. We closed our eyes, laid our hands on them, and in the name of Jesus, we command you to be healed, type thing, And I kind of closed my eyes because I didn't want to see what their reactions was. I was just getting in there, man, in the name of Jesus, And many, many miracles happened. We have had a deaf man that totally deaf was healed. And that was actually an instantaneous miracle where within minutes he began to hear, got really excited. I began to test it out and get farther and farther away and make little noise like this. And I can hear it. And just many miracles like that. A woman that couldn't lift her arm, couldn't wash her own hair, all that kind of stuff.
I remember seeing that.
And she was totally healed and actually had a visitation from Christ. He visited her in her dreams after we prayed for her, and he offered her a present. And when she opened the present, she woke up from her dream completely healed. Wow. She invited all of us to come back. She said, can you come back and tell us more about Jesus? We'd only just shared a little of the gospel. And so 5 days later, we came back, and she had gathered friends and family and everybody around the table. And one of the coolest parts is we began to share the gospel with everybody at the table. But next door to us, we were underneath a little pop-up tent. Next door to us were people with their offerings to an idol there. Somebody had passed away. They were preparing their offerings, food offerings, and they were going to give that to the spirit house and all of that. As they're doing that, a woman who had a broken arm came, and she had just had a cast put on 4 hours before. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I've seen a lot of miracles, but I've never seen anything like this. So she came with a broken arm, having just come from the hospital, having just put a cast on. After she heard her daughter had been healed, she came and asked, would you speak a blessing over me? And so, of course, we did. We spoke a blessing over her, and in the name of Jesus. And if I'm completely straightforward, I didn't expect, to hear crack and pop, and now she's healed. That's just not what I was thinking. I just did it in faith. I didn't feel a feeling or a goosebump. I just said, in the name of Jesus, be healed. And all of us did. We prayed over it together as a team. When we did, she began to make a extremely loud noise. She yelled. She fell over on one of our helpers, one of our workers. She fell over on her, crying and making loud noises because the power of God was hitting her arm, and she was being healed. And she began to twist and move and shake it and doing all these things. Well, the people who were putting offerings together next door, they came over to see what was happening. They wanted to know, what is this? And we were able to preach the gospel to all of them. So. Having said that, there were miracle after miracle after miracle, probably more than 20 miracles that we could verify that happened in a very short time. And then we were able to plant a church. And then out of that, we were able to plant 2 more house fellowships. And it was really rolling. And then COVID-19. And at first, actually, I had gone to my daughter, my middle daughter. She's 20 years old. She's been called to the mission field for a long time. She was going to go to Africa a couple of years ago before we were even leaving for Thailand. She was going to go to the mission field. And before she left, she'd had her money raised. She was ready to go. She was diagnosed with Lyme's disease, and she was having terrible pain, and she was just in a real bad situation. Doctor said, you don't need to go right now. You need to wait. So she waited. She was discouraged. She was having to later work at a plant and just saying, Dad, this is not my life. And of course, then we moved to Thailand. Now it's getting close to a year ago. And she had been just thinking, I want to go. It's time for me to go. It's time for me to go. So she got on one of the last planes through South Korea. In fact, this is how dangerous of a trip she went through. She went through Seattle, Washington, when they were in the middle of their outbreak, and then flew through Seoul, Korea, when they were at the height of everything. In fact, her plane would seat 650 people. There was around 30 people on her plane. She flew by herself virtually all the way here. And she got here and she was one of the last ones allowed through. So she came here, and so because of that, we had to go on a 2-week self-quarantine. They asked us, everybody we're connected with basically said, because you went through Seoul, Korea, while they were in the outbreak, you need to take 2 weeks and not see anybody. Well, that was a torturous 2 weeks. We were stuck at home and everything. Exactly. And we were in the middle of all this. So someone else was running the ministry for us during that time. And then guess what? As soon as the 2 weeks are over, then it became a nationwide, nobody can leave and everybody needs to stay at home, and Farangs, don't need to go in the villages. And so that turned from 2 weeks into now 4 weeks of not being able to go back.
So it might be helpful just to point out that you're working in places that are here in Thailand, former Buddhist, heavily Buddhist. Heavy. I mean, this country is 65 million people, 95% Buddhist, staunch Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism.
That's right.
So you see all these crazy things happen, miracles, salvations, church plants, and then COVID-19. That's the question. Is the mission canceled? Can COVID-19 crush God's mission?
Yes. Well, we know that it can't.
Yes.
That doesn't mean that we don't have those moments of like, what are we going to do? Yeah. Because initially I was trying to be respectful and say, okay, we'll sit aside for 2 weeks. Then they came back with a greater order that now everyone has to stay away. And then there were some things said that actually, some of the locals were kind of afraid of foreigners, thinking that maybe foreigners were the one making them sick, and that added a layer, because it's like we didn't want the people that we love, that we've been planting churches with. We didn't want them to be put in an awkward situation that their neighbors are saying, why are you hanging around with these Farang? They could make us sick, and
well, the health minister of Thailand actually made some statements about foreigners being the number one carriers in Thailand. Correct. And so you see this kind of xenophobia.
Yeah, it's actually turned into full blast prejudice, really. Where you walk on one side and they begin to walk on the other side. Yeah. I believe that's going to subside. And I tell you this, when miracles happen, nobody cares what color you are. Okay, that's the main thing. And these people that are a part of our churches, I mean, they have seen miracles, every one of them. So they love us. And there's been no pushback as far as our churches go. But we had some meetings and we decided, and by the way, the meetings were less than the amount of people that you're supposed to have. So we followed the rules. And then of course Zoom became our best friend, and we had some Zoom meetings online.
I've heard that Zoom is actually sponsoring coronavirus. Is that true?
Well, I could see how that could be. Somebody could say that.
Stalking Zoom beforehand. You're doing pretty well.
Oh, you're doing really well if you did that. But we sat down and we said, guys, Jesus didn't say go into all the world, preach the gospel, unless a virus happens. What people need to realize, I don't in any way downplay the virus, because it is a very serious thing. Yes. I lost a friend from high school who, because of the virus, took his own life. Because he was overwhelmed financially, and then this hit, and it looked like no end in sight. And some people just feel trapped, and that's how he felt. And there's other people that have lost family members either from the virus or suicide or other things. And so we don't make light of that in any way. We know it's a very serious thing. But at the same time, having done some research, I know a lot of people are speaking about the end of the world. And of course, no man knows the man of the hour, or the day or the hour. It very well could be the beginning of those things. At the same time, imagine in World War I, when 50 million people died, 50 million of the Spanish flu, what they called Spanish flu at that time. 50 million people died, and then another 21 million people died in war in World War I. And then on top of that, countless deaths that they don't even know of disease, starvation, all kinds of things. So we're talking, it could have got up there around 80, 90 million people that died. Okay, the population was far less than it is now. And they're saying at that time, the numbers, and you can check this out, but I triple checked it before I brought these numbers to you. But at the same time, check it out yourself. Somewhere around 1 in every 10 people that lived on the planet passed away during that time. Wow. So that's a massive amount of people. Of course, the population was so much smaller then. Still, that would be like today having 700 million people die. Well, so I mean that would be crazy. So you can imagine, we think, it's the end of the world. Yeah. How much more would they have thought? Oh my goodness, we're never going to get out of this. Yet the ministry continued.
Missions Pulse. Know God's heart, join his mission. This podcast is powered by Within Reach Global. Subscribe, watch, and listen on YouTube today. Visit missionspulse.com.